Welcome to the Grand Shorts, a part of the Grand Podcast. The Grand. My name is Niels Tudor Winter, and I'm the creator, editor, and host of The Grand. The Grand is an independent, non-commercial podcast initiative with the ambition to dig into all corners of the EU R&D funding system on topics of interest for the full EU R&D funding community. This is the second release of episodes under my short format, The Grand Shorts. And this is the second out of the 3 episodes where I zoom in on my second job within this sector, funding consultant at the Alliance for Offshore Renewables, an initiative to secure more EU funding for the Danish offshore renewable sector, and that is offshore wind energy, wave energy, and tidal energy. In this episode, I have invited my colleague back from those days between 2010 and 2014, Project Manager Anders Bræstrup, into the virtual podcast studio for a short talk about how we were hit by one of the most complex issues when you establish a Brussels office: the distance. It seems almost ridiculous before you stand in the situation that this should be one of the trickiest elements, but it is. Why? Because when you lose the close daily connection, it is so easy for communication to slide, for annoyances to slip in, for tasks and responsibilities to become unclear, and then you start to lose your target. Anders and I give you an idea of the problems we faced and how we dealt with them. Quick and nice inspiration for all you Brussels office people out there. Please enjoy. The Grand. Welcome to The Grand, the EU funding podcast. The Grand Shorts, that is, this is the second in this second batch of The Grand Shorts, my new initiatives. And as lined out in the first batch of 3 episodes in this format, I am giving you an insight to my career. And you've just listened to the first 3 episodes about my job as a head of unit in the Danish Agency for Science, Technology and Innovation. And here in these 3 episodes, we will hear about my next job, which was with a Danish regional initiative, a public regional initiative to support the Danish offshore renewable sector, wind and ocean energy. And before I say anything else, because I have a guest, that's the idea I had a guest, one of my old colleagues from back then, to share a little bit how we did things back then. I'll get back to what we're going to talk about shortly. Now, Anders, welcome.
Thank you, Niels. Thank you.
Nice to have you, and nice for quick reply and flexibility. You reached out yesterday to do this.
That's me in a nutshell. Thank you for the invitation.
You are most welcome. Shortly, can you say a few words about yourself and what you do?
Yes, Niels. I am a business consultant. I've been working in the region of southern Denmark in the last 16 years. I was hired there back then when the Danish regions were brand new, and ever since I've been working with developing projects, small and big ones, and strategic projects within the energy sector, and especially offshore wind energy. And lately, for the last 5 or 6 years, I've been working with our climate strategy. Mm-hmm. So back then we were working in the region of southern Denmark with supporting the energy business in the region, and also national initiatives, and now we are focusing more on climate reductions and to work with climate initiatives.
CO2 reductions, I guess. Climate.
Yeah. CO2 reductions, yes, of course.
Yeah, less climate.
Less bad climate.
Yeah. Anders, in the spirit of this short format, let's get on the topic. So I've just my dear guests, they've just listened to me presenting my endeavors in the Alliance for Offshore Renewables, which was the English name. I made a 20-minute episode on that, where I sort of anecdotically shared my time there, what I did. What we're going to zoom in on in this short second episode in this batch is on the issue of distance, because we now, people in the first episode, they've heard a little bit about the initiative, what it was. Now, so they know already that we had a main office in the regional authority headquarters in South Denmark, in Vejle, and where you were sitting. And then we had a satellite in Brussels, which were renting a couple of desks in the South Denmark EU office in the European area in Brussels. Now, we're going to talk about the issue of distance. It's a problem, or it's an issue that many organizations realize is quite tangible suddenly when you establish an office in Brussels. It's first you think, when you are an organization, we need to have a person there, we need to have boots on the ground in Brussels and so on. That's going to be cool and nice, and we're going to be close on everything, on the decision makers, on all the network, and so on and so forth. But they very soon realize that what they did not reflect on was the issues of being more than 1,000 kilometers apart suddenly, between the main office and maybe one person or two persons sitting in a small office in Brussels. Now, this is the situation that we had. And just to shortly outline, we established the office, and then when we did that, we had a high level of communication, because we had to find out the strategies and how to carry them out, and how to approach the different layers of where we needed to do actions, and how to do that, and so forth. But when we finished that and the everyday set in, then suddenly the level of communication, it dropped, and the problems started to arise of this issue of distance. So the fact that you're not sitting next to each other, it means that suddenly you're not aware of where different actions they are. It becomes suddenly also maybe a little bit blurry who's doing what when. And deadlines started to slide, or we didn't communicate deadlines clearly on how to and when to do things in Denmark or in Brussels. And there started to sieve in annoyance in the different units in Denmark and in Brussels, annoyance with each other. You were not only assigned to this, you also had to do duties in the regional authorities. So you sort of let the grip go, and we hired another person to be the main person on the initiative in Denmark. So this situation that I reached to now in the explanation was that there started to be annoyance, friction. What are you doing? It started to come out small comments. What are you actually doing in Brussels? In Brussels, we're like, why don't we hear anything from them? What's going on? We never hear anything. They were supposed to do this and this, and we don't. This started to sieve in. Now, many people who have established an office in Brussels, they will know this scenario. They know this. They know of some sort of nuance or the element of this. Now, I've been talking a lot. Anders, do you remember this?
Yes, I do. I remember it, even though it's about 12 years ago. I do remember it, and it was also a new situation for our office in Vejle, in the region of southern Denmark, to operate to have a satellite office in Brussels, and have to work closely together with a colleague or two colleagues sitting down there in Brussels. So it was a new situation for all of us. And so today, fortunately, we have all learned a lot of the COVID pandemic, how to work together via video meetings, having online meetings on a daily basis. So we're a lot more experienced today, but still there is some reflections and some findings and some things that you should be aware of, even though that we are better today working together over distances via online meetings. And like you said in your introduction, we had a combination it was quite fun to remember that we bought a special video link technology, 2 TV screens, one TV screen in Vejle, one TV screen in Brussels at your office down there with a camera. It was a separate video conference system.
Yeah.
That was before, I think that at that time maybe we could use Skype as an opportunity, but it was not a secure line. So we didn't do that. We spent a lot of money on this video conference system, but nevertheless, it worked, and like we are used to today from working with Teams and WebEx and Google Meet and
Yeah.
what all this is called. So we learned it that way. But I think going back to the problem we were facing, the issues we were facing, had really much to do about it has much to do about what kind of task we were talking about, we were working together on, and it has something to do with the frequency of meetings. So if I remember it correctly, and I think I do, otherwise you have to chip in. The tasks that we did together, the tasks that were really well defined, where we had a clear objective with the task, and maybe also a clear image of the partners, the interests around the task,
Stakeholders.
the stakeholders, the easier, the better the collaboration between the two of our officers worked out.
Yeah.
So it is really something. It has a lot to do with a well-defined task that is it is a task that has a lot of milestones, and it's easy to follow week by week what is the progress of the task.
So let's slide into the second block. We only have 2 blocks. What were the problems of distance and how did we solve it? Or this, at least what we tried to do that helped us. So solution-wise, this is one of the things you mentioned here. Yeah. So what we did was the first actually thing was realized it. Yeah, we realized there was an issue, that the distance was an issue, that we realized what the problems we just mentioned, that it was becoming an issue of internal collaboration, right? So, and so you started mentioning the video part. That is very important, and it's very important for people to understand. As you also mentioned, it was a very different scenario back in 2010, 11, where we bought this. It was a device. It was a screen device called Tenbear, and it was the top-notch brand within business video meetings at the time. Bought them, and we prioritized investing in it because of this. To see each other, not just hearing each other on the phone, but seeing each other and sitting in front, like having a secretariat meeting, having a physical meeting, at least imitating it as much as possible. And so this is very important to understand out there, that what you probably already do, people out there, which is normal now after everything that happened in the world a couple of years ago. This thing, everybody has realized that's important, to have some sort of imitation of physicality. What we also realized, and what we did, the level of communication, we raised it, the frequency of communication. So this was a matter of simply seeing each other on emails, and being aware, making each other aware of where we were in the process of reaching a certain target within an action that we were doing. So this is what you mentioned about the milestones, right? So the idea that everybody, that we had sort of, we made these big action. I remember that we had strategy meetings where we decided where we would go with different things, and we made a timetable like you would do for a strategy, and then we would keep those as blueprints of timelines that we would follow within the different layers of where were we supposed to be, and so on. And then what we also did, Anders, we made, which was also not that common back then, Excel spreadsheet, fine, but we made a database that we could access from both sides. Actually, a very good one. I worked with it. Was a CI. It was both a CRM system, but it was also a strategy tool that we used for results, for sharing. So database, results, strategy, that we could all see in real time. And it worked incredibly. It was sort of an imitation of Excel, actually, but it was more, you had some different tools there, online tools, that was very, very beneficial for the setup that we had.
But Niels, I have to supplement, because I think there was also, we have to remember also that most of the time, when we work together like this with the satellite office where you were in Brussels, I actually came to Brussels almost once a month back then. So this is, and that's, I think that's also, it's important to stress that out, because we had a combination of daily, weekly meetings, online meetings with the old video system, but also we met physically in Brussels, and or in Vejle, almost once a month. So it's a combination. I think it's important to remember.
Indeed.
And that we kept actually throughout the full. That was also in the period that we started to talk about the problems, that we still met. I would still come to South Denmark. You would still come. I remember I had the first year, I was having physical meetings with all the members, so I was driving around in Denmark, and I also came by Vejle when that would be the headquarters, when that would be fitting and so on. So yes, that is very important to stress for people out there, and you will also know people out there who have done this, that you have to prioritize in your budget, travel budget, to go back home or have people from headquarters coming to the office. But that actually this, Anders, that you came, that's not that normal to come often. Not back then, at least, because I would interrogate with or exchange with other people from all kinds of offices and processes, an ecosystem with many people. And often the home base some of them, they would rarely come. So they didn't really know what was going on. They were just expecting, they didn't have an idea of what it was they were doing. And then they would come once per year with a big guy with some fancy titles that would go to the annual trip to Brussels. That's not a way to do it. This is a way to do it. Continuously meetings, just go book trips.
But yeah, and it has a lot to do with the kind of work that we are doing in this area. It's political developing work. If it's in research and development, or it's in climate or medical, I don't know. But when you're talking about a Brussels, a satellite office in Brussels, that is often, like you said in your introductions, is having an employee there following the political agenda in Brussels, maybe uh, uh, participating in the programming of new calls and new political priorities in Brussels, and that kind of work is a work that you need to have. You There is a lot of questions that you need to be in line with your management with. Otherwise, you're not able to work for a half a year on your own with such political matters, or developing projects with a lot of stakeholders. It's impossible that you're working on your own for such a long time. So the frequency of meetings and the level of communication is really key.
The calibration with your home base, the content priorities and understanding that is vital. Then you can run around like a headless chicken in Brussels.
Yeah, and that was the thing that you said in your introduction that we faced after a while in the alliance of Offshore Renewables, our new organization. That was after a while we had the impression, maybe I think it was a common impression, that you did your job in Brussels and we did our job in Vejle, and everybody was happy about that until we and then we scaled down the frequency was getting lower and lower with our meetings, and we met each other not that often than we did before, and that was the factor that gave us some of the problems that you said in your introduction. So even though you have been working together in the headquarters and the satellite office in Brussels for a year or so, and everything seems to work fine, you still have to have a high frequency of meetings, and both physical and online meetings. That is simply key.
And I think if I think back, if we zoom a little bit out, then our advantage was that we had a relatively narrow target group, many stakeholders, but content-wise, narrow target group, which was made it easy content-wise to follow the same. It didn't get so. If you have a broad target group, then it's easier to get lost in if you're different offices. At least we knew exactly the target group, and the goal was also quite clear. Yeah, EU funding, one way or the other. So that was the advantage, which also made it was not that complex for us to adjust on the internal organization. And then I think now we're almost done here. It doesn't have to be much longer. It's a short format. But one thing that we have to mention here in the end, Anders, are the social activities.
Yeah.
The trips, went to Champagne in northern France.
We sitting in a hotel room in Mons in southern Belgium in underwear and do a strategy meeting because it was 30 degrees.
Spare us the details.
It was great fun.
No, but you're right. You can't. We are all dependent on social activity to some degree, that we also have some energy from our colleagues that is not only concerning our work, but we also, when we work close together, we also, I think most of us are benefiting of sometimes talking about completely different things than work, and maybe going out for something to eat and maybe have a glass of wine, and so that is really important. It is in every offices it is important, and of course it is important. You can really feel alone, I guess, if you sit in your own office alone in Brussels and talking with your office in back home once a week. It can be quite lonely. So you need some social activity. Yeah, that's true.
Nah, that's it. We've been recording for 25 minutes now. It defines the short format here. Anders, thanks for joining in quickly here on this.
In this
Thank you
second
for the
episode,
invitation.
Yeah, I'm just going to shut the program down before we say goodbye to the listeners. So, dear listeners, thank you so much for listening to the end in this second episode of the second batch about my time in the Alliance for Offshore Renewables. You'll find more short format episodes in. You'll find more short format episodes in on my website, thegrant.eu. There's a big tab called the shorts on the front page, so you'll find that. Otherwise, you can go to my long format where I have more than 100 episodes now. Should definitely be something of your interest if you have a little more time to listen. Otherwise, check out, if you're not connected already, connect with me on LinkedIn, Niels Tudor Winther. You'll find me there. That's where the fun happens. That's where I like and share and so on. The everyday flow of information and things and news about this EU funding world. That's it. Anders, thanks for joining in. Let's say goodbye to the listeners. Bye.
Bye-bye.
That was the second out of 3 episodes on my second job within this sector. In the upcoming third episode, I carve out another key challenge for many Brussels offices: how to maximize your impact with only 1 or 2 people in Brussels. Stay tuned and see you then. There's so much to talk about. The Grand.